The homeless population in the greater Fresno area has almost doubled over the past 2 years. Tonight, CBS 47 investigates, takes a hard look at the money that has poured into our community this year to help reduce the homeless population, and discovers most of it has not been spent. CBS 47 investigative reporter Kara Rucker has spent weeks combing through the numbers.
Right, Catherine, when you add up all the federal and state grants available to our community since the beginning of 2020 and what continues to be awarded, we're talking more than $100 million. That's more money received than ever before. Have you ever seen this much homeless funding come into our city?
No, absolutely not.
It's a once in a lifetime generational funding opportunity.
Homelessness has gone from a concern to a crisis. In 2018, there were 1,834 homeless people in the city and county of Fresno. In 2020, that number increased to 3,251.
What we're facing is a crisis within a crisis.
Because of the coronavirus, state and federal funding came pouring in.
Having money to work on homelessness is great. Having it all at one time is tough.
The city, county, continuum of care, and the Fresno Housing Authority were recipients of homeless funding. Coronavirus relief came in the form of 15 awards. COVID funds come as an addition to existing grants from the state and federal government not yet used, and another grant on the way, altogether adding up to more than $100 million.
We don't want to leave any of the money on the table because the need is there.
But right now, there are tens of millions left on the table, 9 months into the pandemic.
By December 30th, we'll have spent $5 million.
A little over $5 million total as well.
Then there is HomeKey. $24.1 million was awarded to Fresno Housing Authority. Another $15.3 million to the county. Preston Prince, CEO of Fresno Housing Authority, showed us the 4 motels that will be purchased through HomeKey.
For us, we're really appreciative and thankful of the state giving us this chance. And as I said, we've got to perform. We got some work ahead of us.
Once COVID hit, we have less than a 1% vacancy rate. So where do you move people to?
She says the lack of housing has made spending some of the money difficult. Do you think we could have spent more of this money to help more people?
I don't know where we would have put more people.
The plan being to use emergency solution grants to help support HomeKey, grants specific for COVID relief. So that money is not being used.
Right now at this moment, no, it is not being used.
Should we be using it right now in the middle of this pandemic?
So could we use it? Do I have the ability to push out more? Do we have more spaces that we can put people in? Do I have more shelter beds available? Probably not.
Recently, the city, county, and continuum of care were criticized in their handling of homeless. A civil grand jury investigation conducted in 2019 was released in October. The report finds there is a lack of robust central coordination in providing homeless services in Fresno County.
Absolutely, there's work to be done.
The civil grand jury found there to be a lack of transparency at the FMCOC.
Their claim that the continuum needs to share more, absolutely. But I will also tell you why it hasn't happened, and that's because the continuum is all volunteer.
And this could have hindered their ability to effectively spend their share of the funding.
If I would have had, another 20 people, sure, we could have gotten out the whole amount of money and, figured out how we were going to manage that.
The grand jury report says it was evident this all-volunteer organization does not have the necessary resources to provide requisite coordination and oversight.
Yeah, I would say that's true.
Spies says an initiative Street to Home will soon provide proper oversight and coordination once the board positions are filled.
I think implementing the grand jury's recommendations will be high on our list of priorities.
So, Catherine, we have tens of millions of dollars to go toward homeless resources, but tomorrow night we show you the struggle to get the homeless to accept these services.
Because even though we have the money, a large percentage won't take the help.
Right, absolutely. So of the people that the homeless task force comes into contact with, they say only about 1% actually accept services. And Catherine, we did a ride along with the homeless task force. We're going to have that in our part 2 of this series tomorrow.
Tonight, part 2 of a CBS 47 investigation, which discovered the city of Fresno has tens of millions of dollars meant to address homelessness, but much of it is not being spent. The city says part of the challenge is getting those who are homeless to accept that help. CBS 47 investigative reporter Kara Rucker did a ride along with Fresno police and joins us live in the studio with more on what homelessness in Fresno has become. Kara.
Right, Catherine. The Fresno PD's Homeless Task Force says of the people they come in contact with, only 1% accept help. The community has $100 million allocated for homeless resources. Those in charge of spending it say it's hard to help people who don't want it.
Fresno PD, anybody inside? Hello?
What you see out there right now is simply just not acceptable to anybody.
Whether it's the human feces or their animals, it's pretty filthy. So I think it gives Fresno a black eye looking at all this. So this is a daily activity here for us. It's sad seeing people living like this in the dirt and the mud and, like I said, the bugs, the rodents, all that kind of stuff. It's too bad.
CBS 47 was invited to do a ride-along with the Homeless Task Force to get a glimpse of their day-to-day. Is that part of your task force?
This is our task force, yes. Every day we will come through this area.
Gary Holden is one officer of the task force.
We have 5 officers and 1 sergeant.
A job that entails patience.
You work hand in hand with the sanitation department
Every day.
every day
Yes.
to clean up trash.
That's what it boils down to. You'd hope people would accept services, but they just choose not to get off the streets.
That choice to decline help is the decision of 98.3% of homeless the task force comes in contact with. 1.7% accepted services.
How long have you been here? Only a week. Okay. The folks that I spoke to earlier, didn't want services today.
It's the same response over and over.
This guy is always packed up. We show up, he just rolls away, but doesn't want services. It just,
He just keeps on moving?
Yeah, but he'll come right back to that same exact spot.
It's a cycle with very slight change.
It's a revolving door, unfortunately. Yeah.
Okay.
It probably seems like Groundhog Day over and over again to them.
We've been called to this same location numerous times. Nobody here. Looks like they've been lighting fires also against the building, trying to stay warm.
The homeless person who was here was breaking the law, but so far this year, only 2% of the time have the officers enforced any laws.
We're not criminalizing the homeless. Our goal is not to simply try to arrest our way out of this problem.
Even when the homeless are breaking the law.
Do they have the right to be here at this property? No, they're trespassing. This is private property. They don't have a right to be here.
If we've had to resort to an enforcement action such as an arrest, it's typically a last resort.
So why is it a last resort?
Ultimately we try to aim for voluntary compliance. We try to get these folks into services.
But according to their own statistics, that's not happening. You drive through Fresno, the overflow of homeless is visible.
There's some camps up there. All those up there.
But a cruise through Clovis looks a little different. Their policies look a little different too.
When you drive through Clovis, you don't ever see the transient camps that you may see in other California cities. We enforce the law. We don't let things slide.
In Fresno, camps are piling up. And a policy that's been challenging, only the camps on city property can PD address. Otherwise, they turn around.
We don't have jurisdiction. You figure out what you can and can't do. That's what it is. It's black and white.
Do you think our system in place is working right now?
Our system, we're managing the problem right now.
The task force remains hopeful for a solution, that one day they will move from managing to minimizing homelessness in Fresno.
The task force believes progress is coming after the acquisition of 4 motels made possible by home key funding. Meanwhile, this homeless task force could be at risk of being cut, as it's been mentioned in city council meetings this year as part of police reform discussions. I'm reporting live in the studio, Kara Rucker, CBS 47 Eyewitness News.